Hi, everyone. Welcome to SBR Sports Picks. This is the weekly Q&A that we do every Thursday at 12:30 Eastern Time. Drew Martin is out of the office today, and we are lucky enough to have Teddy Covers filling in for Drew Martin, and this will be good because we'll be able to take advantage of Teddy Covers' presence in the open-ended format of this show and pick his brain on pretty much anything we want related to gambling or otherwise. But yes. So I'm very happy that Teddy Covers is here. He's going to share with us whatever we want to know. And he told me before we started this show off camera that if we want gambling stories, he's got two. Now that's kind of more, I'm sure. Yeah, he's got two that he thinks might be worthy of sharing us without even any questions. Teddy Covers, hit us with the first one. What do you mean you have two gambling stories that you think are interesting that might be fun to tell?
Well, people look at me now. Oh wow, you've been in Vegas almost 20 years. You know, you must have always been. No, I was a terrible bettor. I was a miserable bettor. I started out as a bookie. I never made a bet before I started booking. And I just watched other people lose. I'm like, oh, I can do this. You know, I can bet. And I just don't do what they do. Didn't really work for college football. So it's the bowl season. Again, we're talking, it's old, you know, the 1995 bowl season into 1996. And I made every mistake that you can possibly. Okay. I lost. I was betting teams I didn't know anything about. I was doubling up and tripling up and quadrupling up when I was sliding in this. And you remember that the national championship game was Nebraska against Florida. And I didn't know anything about, Florida. Okay. And literally that's like at that point I was down significant amount of money that I didn't have to pay my man. And I bet it all on Florida, double or nothing right here. And I don't know if you remember the game. Lawrence Phillips ran wild. It was over in the first quarter.
Wow.
You know, there was nothing to watch. I think it was 62-14. And I'm sitting there, and I lost like 2 months worth of, what I would make in 2 months at my job. And I spent the next 2 months, working to pay my man. And that was the point for me that I said, if you're going to do this, you have to take this seriously. You can't do it half-assed. You can't do it casual. You have to learn something about sports betting. That was a seminal law. That Florida-Nebraska game was a seminal moment for me. And I imagine many of our viewers, many of the people that are out there have had similar moments.
Sure.
Or they've had that struggle that, where all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. I can't keep doing it this way.
Right.
And hopefully that's what SBR will help with.
Yeah.
That's what SportsBit does. That's what Chat With You does. There are resources available now that weren't available in the mid-90s when I was getting my clock cleaned. I hope you guys can take it.
Wow, that's quite a story, Teddy Covers. You told that one in a very gripping manner, and I can tell that the emotional impact of that event in your life is still with you.
You can't forget it.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, the games that where you just make your not just a max bet. I mean, I went a double or nothing on everything that I owed after a month's worth of losing to my bookie on the one game that I didn't know anything about.
Right.
And was so wrong. It's supposed to hurt. It's allowed to hurt. And you're no pain, no gain. That was a moment where I said, you can't ever do this way again. And mostly I have.
Yes. All right. Well, congratulations on that's a crazy story. There's so many important points that are related to that story. I guess the first thing I think of is that it is true that from the perspective of the bettor, sports betting is a negative sum game. So that is something that you have to be very careful about. If you were just flipping coins with every bet, then it would be a lot easier and a lot more forgivable and a lot more excusable if you didn't do your due diligence on every bet, because at least you wouldn't be negative by flipping a coin, basically. But because in sports betting, if you do start flipping coins, you're going to lose, which is a definition of a negative sum game. You have to be very vigilant and careful that what you're doing is at the very least something that you honestly believe is the right thing, and that you're not secretly telling yourself that you're being a little bit lazy in your approaches.
I mean, 52.4% doesn't sound like much,
right? But it actually is.
The difference between 50% and 52.4 over the course of a year, over the course of 1,000 bets, It's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
1,000 plus.
I mean, I remember I tell this story, which I liked. I mean, I'm a little bit different from you, Teddy, in that I always tell the heights of my gambling career. I tell the greatest things I've ever done, and the embarrassing stuff I tend to not tell anyone about. But
I don't think it's embarrassing at all.
Yeah.
And look, I didn't wake up as a sports bettor. I didn't grow up as a sports bettor. It didn't. It happened organically, but it comes from taking punches, just like you're becoming a man. You know? I mean, you don't become a man without taking some punches.
Becoming a man, yeah.
You know?
So talking about those winning percentages again, I talk about this all the time. The one year that I did come in first place in college basketball on covers, right?
I heard about that.
And that year, actually, I think I picked every game, right, and I weighted it, but I think my overall winning percentage was 54.5%.
And you won
the out of like thousands and thousands and thousands of accounts. So 54.5% was like super good, you know? So yeah, it just goes to show you that 52.7% does seem like, or no, 52.4% or whatever, seems like it's not that big of a deal. It is a little bit hard to do. And if you can do a little bit better than that, then you're really in a good spot. But it's quite hard to do, 54. If you can hit 54% over a large sample size in a major market, that is very impressive.
And that's one thing I think a lot of newbie bettors don't realize, the power of 55%.
Yeah.
If you hit 55% of your bets, 11 out of 20, you're not talking about a ridiculous percentage, 11 out of 20.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how much money you have in your pocket at the end of the
day. Yeah. I mean, it's
significant. It really, so it's not like you have to, I know whatever, some of the touts put out the craziest stuff, and I have a tout story. They didn't even.
Okay. Hit us with that one. Teddy covers.
That's a long story.
Okay.
And I would insult, I think, too many people.
Okay.
I had a very, very, very negative tout experience. Let's just put it that way. Where my local radio host back in Michigan had somebody on, a name handicapper, who was telling them, I hit 85% this NFL season. I'm sitting there thinking I'm having a great NFL season. At the time, I was at 61%. I'm having a real good year. Well, this guy hit 85. Shit, I better call him. And my buddy's like, don't do it. And it was an unbelievably negative experience. My credit card got ripped up, and I got charged up, and I lost every bet that he gave me. And I had touts calling me day and night for literally until I moved for that number. So it was such a bad experience. I'm like, if I can be decent at this, if this is what's selling out there, I'm better than this guy. I can be better than this guy. But of course, I came out to Vegas, and the first year I was out there, I had a very good college football season. Got a little bit of a following. I was posting on a bunch of posting forums. Trying to build up a name and trying to build up a brand. And then I had a real good run in the super contest. I had a top 10 finish in the super contest the second year.
That's huge.
Which was real nice.
It was also smaller back then, was it?
Totally. I had a good year.
Right, similar to the World Series of Poker. Like early on, it was like the fields were tiny compared to what they are now, right?
No question. Yeah, right. I mean, the World Series of Poker was at 100.
Yeah.
And then it was like the big fields were 500, 600 when I went out there. And of course, after Moneymaker, that was the end of that. But I'm out in Vegas. So the first year I do have a real good college season. The second year I have a real good NFL season. And the third year, it's mid-October, and I am struggling. I am struggling. I can't get my NFL right. I can't get my college right. I'm coming off back-to-back disaster weekends. Falcons Steelers Monday night, the year after Monday Night Football. And the line is Pittsburgh -4.5, and it's getting bet up to 5 and getting bet up to 6 and 6.5 and 7. And I'm like, this is my game. And I'm going on. And I did one more all in. I went all in on Atlanta that night. Plus the points. I'm like, this is the most public play ever. This is your spot for the Falcons. And of course, they're getting crushed. And I'm 14-0. It's Cordell Stewart I'm betting against. It's not like I'm betting against a big Ben. I'm betting against Cordell. And of course, Atlanta is just terrible. First half couldn't have been uglier. I got +6 in my pocket, +6.5, +7. I got a bunch of money line. And I didn't start out being all in. As the line kept on going in, I'm like, I got to do it. Let's take another trip to the money machine. Let's take another, and I basically emptied my accounts on this one game. And I had about 2/3, about 70% of it, +6, +6.5, or +7. And then I put up a bunch of money line bets. And the first half was a disaster. And I'm sitting there watching the game. That numb feeling? You ever had that numb where you're just numb? Like,
yeah, I mean, I try not to. I kind of don't. I try to be very disciplined in my betting, Teddy Governor. So yeah.
But were you always? I mean, did you grow up just when you first started betting? Did you have the discipline that you have now?
Well, see, that's the thing, because when I started betting, like I was one of those guys who I actually didn't realize, but everyone knew. Like I used to just. I did it purely from an entertainment perspective. Like I used to spend hours handicapping the horses, but not betting.
Sure. Totally understand.
So actual betting money was something I had to like force myself to try to do.
Sure. I totally understand the concept. And so I'm all in on it. This is my again, this is even after I've been in Vegas for a little while. You know what I mean? It's not like a situation where I haven't been out there and I don't know the risk of this, but I was pushed up against it. You know, I felt like this was the game. I really, that this is it. And it's okay to step up when you feel like this is the spot in this game if you have a good read on those things. And to this day, I recommend you do not want to flat bet. When you find your really good lines and your really good spots, you can up your wager size, but you're not supposed to up it to a factor of 20 or 50. But in this instance, so the bottom, it's 14-0 to half, and I gave that. Where you're just, you're totally. I mean, I was like at halftime, I was like, what do I mean, I didn't have any money left to do anything at halftime. Nothing at halftime. I mean, there was nothing going. I mean, it's just me. I'm going to live or die with this. And of course, fourth quarter, the Falcons make their run.
Wow!
And they get back in the game, and now they're covering. And then they get like that 1st and goal. Like the 1 or maybe a second goal from the 1. I'm going to cash my money line. I'm going to cash everything. It's going to be this huge score. Everything's fine. And they couldn't punch it in. So I got the cover, but didn't get the huge payday with the money.
Oh, gosh.
But after that, that was my last all-in. That was the last time. All right, you can't, it's not appropriate to be making bets at this.
Well, this is something that I give an example of all the time. And if you ever give this, I mean, it's kind of, I'm not the first one to come up with this, but if you look at outlier result, when you're thinking about why it's a bad idea to go all in, when you look at outlier result games and you think about what you would have done if someone had offered you some crazy bet from beforehand, you would have gone all in. And in fact, in that situation, you would have been justified in going almost all in, but it's still not a sure thing. Like for example, it just happened this past NBA Finals or NBA playoffs. There was one game where I think it was the Cavs against Boston, and the Cavs were up by like 40 points at the half or something, right? Now, if someone had offered you, the Celtics first half plus 35, in fact, based on like a strict Kelly, analysis, you would have been justified in going, putting 90% of your bankroll on the line, but you would still have lost. And so that just sort of shows you that even things that really are almost sure things are still not sure things. So you can imagine how almost never these market lines are ever sure things.
Sure. Right? I mean, we do a little segment on Sportsbook, and it's not a regular. We do it once in a while. We go, how much would what would you have lost if?
Right.
So how much would you have lost if someone gave you Golden State plus 20.5 in Game 4?
Right.
I lost a bunch. How much you lost if someone gave the Orioles? I remember the Orioles plus 29.5 for the series against the Yankees last weekend. Those type of things. There are always going to be outlier results, and that's why again, you learn lessons, and if you can learn the lessons, you can be successful at this. If you can't, then it's likely to be an uphill battle.
Yeah. And so, so the outlier result just goes to show you, when you look at things from an extreme perspective like that, and you look at, let's say that they're even, like I said, again, even things that are sure things, that are in fact mathematically, close to being sure things, still sometimes lose. That's when you realize like how dumb it is, or not dumb, but, short-sighted it is to make a huge wager bet on multiple, market lines that are not, where you're not, so where someone's not saying, here, I'm offering you, Celtics first half plus 35. And obviously that's, the market lines are obviously, not only are they not ridiculous, but they're sharpened by guys who have proven themselves long-term. So the market is very sharp, which doesn't mean you can't beat it, but it does mean that you have to make your bet size accordingly, modest,
Yes.
Have respect for the market.
Yes, I do know.
Okay. All right. That was a little bit inarticulate what I just said, but all right. Okay. So let's see. Let's see any comments here. Any
what the line was at Nebraska versus Florida game. It was close to pick 'em. It was pretty close to pick 'em. The Gators might even be favored by 1 or 2. I don't remember offhand. I remember it being that it wasn't. It was. I remember thinking pick 'em, right around pick 'em.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Questions here. Any questions for Teddy Covers? We got Teddy. Here you go. Hill is getting worked. Is that the case? Yes. See, I told you. I'm down on Hill, and I took him on the team total over. I got Cleveland 4 and Summit 4.5 as well. And again, but that is you have to bet modestly, because let's say they had offered I don't know, Cleveland team total over 1.5. I would have, bet, 75 or 80% of my bankroll, but that still could lose, even though as of now, it looks like at this bet, I'm like, oh, it was obvious. I knew it. I should have bet everything I had on, Cleveland team total over. But no, that's why it's very tempting. It's very tricky, Teddy Covers, because when you have a bet that you feel like you have a good read on, and then it plays out exactly as you expected, you feel like, oh, I knew it. I did my research. I was totally right. So I should have bet everything I had on it. But, you aren't always going to be totally right. And there is, variance even involved in games where you were correct.
That's a great feeling. I mean, the games where, like, I do write-ups for the vast majority of the games that I put out. When the write-up, when I write it up and then it plays out that way, you're like, you feel really good about those. But I'm not a guy that goes back to, I should have bet more. Right. So many bettors do feel that way. Like Volquez, remember, he got lit up yesterday early. And,
That's right.
Lo and behold.
That's right. And I had the under on that one, which was Edinson Volquez. We can talk about him. We'll talk about him. He's just a fascinating guy, because he's one of these guys who he was on the auto fade list for me early on in the year, and then threw a friggin' shutout, no hitter, and then threw a shutout after his no hitter. So I don't know. Do you have any words on Edinson Volquez, on a guy who has those kinds of results in the majors? I mean, do you think I guess going forward, we should probably expect him to be roughly average.
That's
right.
But I don't think he's a disaster.
That's right. Here you go, Teddy Covers. I said right in front of you in this show this morning, I said I'm down on Rich Hill, and hopefully that will. But again, we've seen this before. I've definitely been on team total over 4s, where the team that I bet on scores 3 runs in the first inning, and it winds up losing anyway, right?
Those games where you have an over 9, and it's 6-1, and But whenever you have an over, you want both teams to be scoring. You don't want one of those games where it's 7-0 in the third, and every at bat the rest of the game is just hacking away.
Yes. All right. So here we go. D from Detroit asked, Teddy, is there ever a situation that you parlay more than 2 teams?
Yes. There is a situation when I parlay more than 2 teams, and that comes with when I'm looking for how to get a score, how to hit a score. Underdogs on the money line, and I will do that. A lot of that in October, in particular, in both college football and the NFL. You have teams, and again, I'm not looking for, but I'll round robin 4 or 5 or 6 teams together.
Sure. Round robin is different.
Occasionally, you hit a ridiculous score that can be a real game changer.
Sure.
But I keep my long shot parlay portion of my bankroll separate from my everyday straight betting bankroll.
Yes.
It is 2 separate entities.
Yes.
And I'm not, my bet sizes for the long shot parlays tend to be relatively small.
Yes. I mean, in general, your long shot bets should be relatively small bets, because they're likely to lose, and except in certain circumstances where it's like there was actually, and the most one the one that jumps out at me the most is there are some times in MMA, like when Holly Holm was going up against Ronda Rousey, where there is actually a huge underdog that maybe even should literally be a favorite, and that is not.
I don't know if that.
What?
I don't even think in hindsight I would have made her a favorite.
Holly Holm a favorite? I would have made them probably even. In hindsight?
She hasn't won a fight since that. I was actually asking about her.
Who, Holly Holm?
And she's 0-3 after that.
Right, but it was more of a.
Again this weekend.
Yes, it was more of a fade of Ronda Rousey, I guess, than I mean Rousey was obviously a one-trick pony, but yeah, I mean you do see that in MMA sometimes, not often, but it's not unheard of to have a, and I mean if you look at like, I mean I'm trying to think like Weidman against Silva, or lots of situations. There are situations
where the first time the spider got taken out, just dancing around like these.
Right.
It's collapsed.
Sure, and fights are different in that regard.
Yes.
Where there's a fair. There's more public perception involved in a fight line than there is probably in any other.
And a much smaller sample size, even with, guys who have had 40 fights.
Did you see the comment from Zach Sozano over there? We're expecting a $15 million handle on Mayweather versus McGregor, double the handle of Mayweather versus Pacquiao. And look, I'm not a believer in fixes, but I'm not betting. I will not lay it with Mayweather, because how much do they make on the rematch?
Right.
The only way they get the rematch is if Mayweather loses. And Mayweather hasn't fought in 2 years.
Right.
He's a 40-year-old guy who hasn't fought. So, You know, do I say Mayweather's taking a dive? No, I'm not saying Mayweather's taking a dive.
Right.
Am I going to lay minus 1,100 with him to beat someone he's supposed to beat?
He's 600 now.
Not a freaking chance. He's 600 and what? The money's playing on McGregor. Where?
Actually, a guy just sent one over. One of the European books has it.
Oh,
he's about 7 or 8, I think, in our books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know the Westgate was minus 1,100 plus 700 as of. And
McGregor's still plus 7, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean you don't believe in fixes? Fixes happen. The entire NBA is fixed. No, you don't believe in fixes, Teddy.
Prove it.
Okay, right.
But that's the whole thing. Is that, oh yeah, it's fixed. It's fixed. Okay, yeah, prove it. You know, in 2017, where everyone knows everything about everything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Where you can't. You know, if something happens, it's gonna come out somewhere sooner or later. Hasn't come out.
All right. Well, okay.
I mean, you know, if you're doing fixes, you better be pretty darn good about it. Let's just
right. Like
our buddy. Why am I spacing on the NBA ref? What's the NBA?
Tim Donahue. Yes.
Yeah. I interviewed him once. He was really mad at what I wrote.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit.
Was he? Why?
He was pissed. I don't know, because I reviewed his book.
Oh, okay.
And I said that there were 2 books on it, and there was one written by the Penn State professor and the other one by him. I said the Penn State professor is way better.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I actually interviewed Donahue a couple times here for SBR for videos. Yeah, and you know, I felt that what he had to say was generally credible. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't making it up. You know, I mean, I think that the stuff that he said was something that certainly something that a lot of people speculated about for years in the NBA. And yeah, I don't think he was doing it for attention or to, you know, revive. What?
They didn't pay those guys anything. Now they get good salaries, which probably assuages a lot of these problems. But back then, they were making money.
Yeah.
Which is why we don't worry about pro games being fixed, because athletes themselves aren't going to follow that. And you know, when it comes to the college games, obviously that's a different story. There are, you know, there'll be a betting scandal in the next 5 years in some place or other, just like there was, you know, about every 5 years or so you get something. But even the betting scandal, you know, even the Arizona State thing, you know, but guess what? Their big bet, they lost.
Is that true?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The coach went nuts at halftime, and everyone came in the second half. And
wow. I didn't know that. I don't follow the betting scandals. Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a San Diego State scandal, and there was
San Diego. It was USD San Diego.
Okay.
It wasn't Fisher's squad.
Okay,
Fisher ran a clean.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. In college basketball, like if I was going to fix something, I would go straight to the OVC, baby, the Ohio Valley Conference.
Sure.
I would go around campus. I'd be like, "What's up, everybody? I'm here to fix some games. Who's in? Tennessee Martin, campus of Tennessee Martin. You know, Austin Pay. Yeah, absolutely." Tennessee State, baby. Let's fix some shit. Make some cash. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, the Toledo scandal, you know,
right?
I mean,
Yes.
The way the way a lot of these scandals get busted is somebody else gets busted. It's not like the scandal itself. The Toledo scandal, they were the guy who was fixing was caught on wiretap with something, and that's how they got all the players. Right. Got busted with something else.
Yeah, and the other thing is that like a lot of times like if sports betting was legalized, you know what would happen? You know how like if you don't put a virus protector on your computer, what happens is all the viruses come and they start fighting with each other. So what would happen is if sports betting got legalized, like both sides of the OVC games would be trying to be fixed.
Like the poster for that, Civil War movie.
Yeah, it would be crazy. It would be pretty crazy because you'd have like, you know, Tennessee Martin playing Tennessee State and both teams trying to fix the outcome of the game. And I don't know.
That's funny.
It'd be pretty wacky, you know?
It's pretty weird.
And they wouldn't realize that in half the game, you know, as the game's going on, they'd be like, what the hell's happening? That those guys are trying to throw the game too. And then they would realize it halfway through.
I'm trying to remember. I remember seeing a video where this happened.
Really?
It was a women's game, and they were clearly just missing shots.
Really?
Just like walking into defenders. Both teams doing it. And I think that they shut down both programs because of that. It was very obvious. It was a few years ago. Really.
Not a WNBA game though.
No. Okay. This was low level.
Okay. Yeah.
Like probably a college.
I mean, I'm assuming that stuff would happen in like the very minor soccer leagues where like, you know, there's tons of, you know, gangs who have an interest in fixing it, and they wind up having two gangs fixing both sides. You know what I mean?
Sure. There's a lot of the soccer friendlies have been notoriously fixable. And tennis, of course, is the other sport where there's been, you know, because it's just one guy.
Yeah.
You know, that there's been a fair bit of scandal in that regard. What do you think? More? Like, do you think we'll see more or less of this moving forward?
Well, it depends on the legal. I mean, I think the assumption is that the more money that's involved, the more likely that is to happen. The more legitimate money, that's involved is more likely that it's happened. So obviously, if it became, if instantly you pressed a button and all sports betting in all forms were completely legalized in the United States in all places, you would assume that there would be suddenly a lot more, money and smart money coming in, and you would then assume that there would be a lot more fixing going on. My opinion on this has always been that in the future, that match fixing would be similar to everything else, which is that it would evolve and get more sophisticated, and that it wouldn't be so much that people would be looking to fix the outcome of the games, win or lose, as it would be that people would start trying to fix props and first half and second half bets. And that what they would do is, instead of trying to fix a game to be 100% result, they'd be like, all right, we're going to have an arrangement where, give me 70% winners over an entire season. And that, you know what I mean? And so the people betting it would be like, all right, we're not making a bet here where it's 100% guaranteed we're going to win. We're going to bet the whole season, and we know that we're going to come out 70% winners on the entire season. So it would be a little bit more sophisticated and harder to prove,
With any of the fixing stuff,
yeah.
I don't hate it as long as I know about it.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It'll certainly be interesting to see how it all develops,
Tennis, U.S. Open, apparently a blimp crashed or somebody's just fucking with me. You guys, anything about the tennis?
I appreciate that.
Got a lot of questions about that, so I'll just ask.
About the tennis?
Yeah, U.S. Open, I know.
No, I mean, I like it. I just don't quite have enough time to follow it so that I can be an expert on it. But, I think I love tennis and golf in general, for sure.
Golf?
Yeah, did I say tennis?
Yeah. I know that on Sportsbook we put out, and it was a Brady Cannon play. I'm not a golf expert, but Brady made a real compelling case for Ricky Fowler at 18-1. And I know the first headline I saw was Fowler off to a hot start. That's all I know so far. So far, so good. But yeah, unfortunately, you don't cash them. Well, not unfortunately, but you don't cash those tickets on Thursday. You cash them on Sunday.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, Teddy, I'm not to belabor this point, but does that make sense to you that, like, back in 1918, when people wanted to fix the game, they'd be like, all right, you lose the game, and then that's it. But that there would be ways to fix things that would be way more sophisticated, which would mean that they would be way harder to suss out by the authorities, and they would also be more profitable long term, right?
One would think, but again, I mean, that's we're here in San Jose, right? And Vegas has always been the defense against the fix. The scandals come that people recognize what's happening, because that's where the money comes in the offshore world. And I think that Vegas would continue to be able to do that if there was quote unquote irregular betting action.
Right, like Betfair does. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But offshore wise, with the big bets were all being placed offshore, I don't know if it would come to light the same way. I'm not convinced that it would.
Yeah. So it's always a threat. It's always a possibility there, and that's why I do sort of in the back of my mind always sort of have sort of a fixability factor, like how much is this game likely to fix? And obviously, if you have like a 25-point spread in an OVC game, that's more likely to be fixed than a big game where there's a competitive spread. So I do sort of vaguely have that in my mind at all times, just something in to consider in my blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to consider everything, right?
Yeah.
Is Lonzo going to be a full? Yeah, of course, Lonzo's going in the first round.
All right, so Zach Zosana says, how the hell do you handicap golf? Actually, golf handicapping is fascinating. There's a lot of metrics that they use. There's so many. Putting, obviously, drive distance, accuracy, their accuracy numbers. There's actually a lot of metrics that are actually quite valuable in handicapping golf. And I find that in individual sports, the stats and metrics can be more predictive and more meaningful than in the team sports, because in team sports, right?
The guys that I know that bet golf seriously, they're not picking your long shots every week. They're doing matchups.
Exactly. That's what I like to do.
And the methodology that they use has always been, how does this guy's game fit this course?
Exactly.
Yes. Which is something that, as a not a golf expert, I don't know. So
I love handicapping golf. I have done, when I have time, I do it, and I understand the metrics, and I think it's fascinating. And again, yes, matchups is the way. I'm also with Triple Crown races. That is the way that I bet horse racing now. Only matchup props.
Actually, I think even auto racing is the way.
Yeah. So I love matchup props in horse racing, and definitely in golf. And a second way that can be a nice way to bet is to bet making the cut or top 5 finishes or top 10 finishes, something like that. But yeah, to win the tournament is not something I would ever really bet. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of randomness in there. Yeah. But yeah, there's a ton of, and there's a lot of people online who go into that pretty deeply. A bunch of podcasts and stuff like that I will definitely check out if I'm ever looking to.
It's a fascinating topic, and if you guys want to know some more about it, I don't know what time everything starts, but go check out our video with Brady and Teddy was with you.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you want to learn some more about it on our YouTube.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So Jim Bean says Tomlin is officially off my auto fade list. Tomlin's an interesting guy. I mean, he obviously Tomlin is a guy. He's one of these guys. One thing that I handicap, which I probably shouldn't be, talking too much about this, but Tomlin is a guy who has a lot of volatility with his starts. Obviously he gives up a lot of home runs, but he gives up almost no walks, and that is a huge plus as far as his stats are concerned, and as far as just him getting results is concerned. Tomlin is a guy who will get shelled, 2 or 3 times out of every 10 starts, but he's definitely, so at times he can look like a Bartolo Colon in one given start, but he's definitely not an auto fade guy for me at all.
At times he's out there pitching like Lilith Tomlin.
Yes, absolutely.
And there was a pretty big divergence between the offshore numbers and the Vegas numbers initially on McGregor and Mayweather, and now we're seeing the two come together. Vegas is still, I'm seeing, minus $9, minus $9.50. Offshore, it's significantly lower than that.
Here's a question. Lou Skunt says, what do you guys think about betting NASCAR? I've been doing well with it this year. I know almost nothing about betting NASCAR, except that there are people who take it seriously and people who do well with it.
Jeff actually does. Big man. So if you want to know more about that on the show tomorrow, go ahead and ask him. He'll be happy to talk to you about it.
I mean, I would certainly, at some point, I would like to learn more about it and look into it, because I've definitely been reading over the years that certain people do feel like they have a good edge on it.
That's probably one of the racing disciplines, if you would, where picking a winner is a little bit easier than something like IndyCar.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I guess we can wrap it up. Let's see if let's see quickly what happened with that. Let's not see it. I'm trying to find out if the team total over has all right, internet connection. All right, problem. All right, so I guess that's about it. I guess let's wrap it up. Teddy Covers, thanks for all your gambling stories. Is anything else that you'd like to? Do you have any 2-minute gambling stories that you'd like to leave us with? Any final words? Anything? Thoughts? No.
What do you say? Bet with your head, not over it.
Bet with your head, not over it. Absolutely, there's
a lot of truth.
Bet with your head, not over it. Straight from the mouth of Teddy Covers, longtime industry veteran, expert, successful. You started when did you officially start? 1995?
1998.
1998.
Was my first football season in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Drove out in the Jeep with my cat in the seat next to me and rented a little apartment.
I have a quick question.
How we do?
At what point did you know that you were good enough to be a public figure and to sell your picks and do all that stuff? At what point did you feel like, all right, now I can do it? Now I'm more than just a guy who's trying to do it. Now I've arrived.
I mean, after the top 10 super contest, I felt pretty good about what.
Okay. And what year was that you did that you had a top 10 in the super contest?
That's 99.
99. Okay. There you go. All right. Yeah, because I remember, I'm trying to remember, because I followed you when by the time I started getting into gambling, you were already a public figure. You were one of the first people that I found, and because I remember that Covers used to have your free picks would have the game summaries. Remember that?
Yeah,
yes.
Sure.
And I used to remember there were some guys, I'm not going to name any names, but I thought these guys were all full of shit. Some guys who I liked, and you were one of them, and Dave Malinsky was one of them, and I think Matt Fargo, maybe a couple of guys like that. But yeah, you and Dave Malinsky were definitely the two guys that I like to read, and Al McMorty, I guess, even not for the pick, just for the analysis.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes.
And honestly, Malinsky, the first time I heard Malinsky doing the Stardust line was one of those seminal moments.
Really?
Like,
yeah.
I want to hear what this guy has to say.
Yeah. He was just a guy who it was one of those guys who I wasn't even necessarily interested in the pick, just interested when I was first starting out in just seeing how he approached things and what his thought processes were.
He's fascinating, very smart guy. We had a few conversations, and I'm sure you talked to him while he was down here.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Hope you all enjoyed this. A little bit of just picking the brain of a guy who's been in Q&A. Yes, well, Teddy's been around for there's a lot to pick in there, right? He is so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe we'll do it again at some point in some other fashion, some other format. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back next week with Drew Martin back for the Thursday Q&A next week. Don't miss. No,
not new Drew Martin. We'll be back next week, but not Drew. Drew will still be on vacation.
Oh, okay. Well, someone else will be here with the Q&A. Maybe Teddy will join us remotely. Maybe, if he wants to. And he's like, no, probably not. Okay, probably not. Yeah. Okay, it'll be me and Matt. Okay. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show.